Hey there, friends. Welcome back to my channel. Shalita here. You guys, it's time to talk about those July reads. At this point, you probably have already seen my August TBR just because I really wanted to go ahead and dive into that. I'm ready to read, okay? But now it's time to talk about July. July was a pretty good month for me. I feel like it made up for several of the past months. Like the past couple of months, I've had like a really phenomenal read and then like some so-so reads. But this month in July, I had some pretty phenomenal reads. So I'm ready to share those with you. But before we jump into this, you know what I'm gonna say. You know what I'm gonna say before I even say it. I mean, you're pretty much psychic. What am I gonna say? What am I gonna say, class? Yes, that's right. Like, comment, subscribe. Exactly. Because like half of y'all are just like watching, you know, and it's okay. It's okay if you like to watch. But go ahead and subscribe too. Hit that notification bell, you know, so you'll know when your girl's here. Okay? All right, so let's jump into it. So the first book that I read in July, I've talked about this book briefly in another vlog, I'm pretty sure. As a matter of fact, I probably talked about the other ones as well in another blog. So vlog. So I'm not gonna hold y'all long today. Okay. First book that I read in July was Blood Rains Down by H.M. Wolf. So y'all, this was a 5-star read for me. This was an absolute banger for me. Well, this was an e-arc, and this is book 2 in the series, the story series by H.M. Wolf. This is her debut series. Book 1 is the Book of Sin. This series follows our girl Sin, or Hyacinth, and her and her friends, they grew up in this orphanage. You know, there was this major war in the realm of Nimbria. You know, you've had these rival kingdoms, and there was this all-out bloodbath, you know, hundreds of years prior. Pretty much all these children are, you know, orphaned. So they've been raised in this village, and when the child reaches a certain age, they can decide whether they want to stay there at the orphanage, or they stay there in that kingdom, in that orphanage, or whether they want to basically, you know, almost, I guess, like with I don't know a whole lot about the Amish culture, but they can basically say, hey, you know, sayonara, I want to go take my chances out here in the wild on my own. You know, I want to leave this kingdom. In book 1, they are forced to flee before their time, before they're ready. They're forced to flee because the orphanage gets attacked. We go on this grand old adventure with them as they try to unravel this prophecy about a all-powerful child that basically everybody wants to get their hands on, because, you know, this child is supposed to have like the powers of the gods. And our girl Sin, she's got some pretty phenomenal powers that haven't been seen in over 100+ years. So they're like, hey, we'll take her too. At the end of book 1, you know, this group of friends, which pretty much, I mean, they're family. Found family is a very big trope in this. It's a very key factor, which I love about this. At the end of book 1, they are dealt a devastating blow. So in book 2, we are continuing on this journey with them as they grapple with that grief, as Sin tries to learn to harness her powers. At the end of book 1, we also learned some key facts about Sin. You know, there's some revelations, some stunning revelations about Sin and her heritage and her abilities that we learn. So in book 2, you know, Sin's journey is to basically, you know, learn how to harness these powers because, you know, people are counting on her. She's responsible for a lot of lives at this point. And they are trying to prevent a war, win a war. You know, there's warring factions, warring kingdoms. So, you know, it's time to protect the innocent and all that good jazz. But then we have other members of this group, this found family, who are dealing with the, like I said, the tragic loss. So we're seeing how that grief affects all of them, and it is affecting one of the group pretty significantly, and her name is Ada. Ada is Sin's best friend. She is her sister, but Ada's grief is so out of control, or at least the way that she's handling it is so out of control, and everyone grieves differently, but Ada's grief has her pretty much on like the brink of self-destruction. Homegirls is out here starting fights, effing people up, getting toe up drunk. And then we learn some, you know, there's some startling revelations about her abilities and her powers. This is such a well-written novel, with the way that it tackles grief and the way that it can manifest for people. And the way that she addresses, you know, like I said, this found family, they, the bond between Sin and Ada is just that sisterhood, and this grief is basically tearing them apart. They have this fight, and y'all, when I read this fight scene, I was like, ain't no way. Ain't no way. You're not about to whoop my ass in front of our entire family. You're not about to whoop my ass in front of my man. Absolutely not. I understand you gotta get at your system, but I'm not your punching bag. I'm not. I'm sorry. Can't allow it. We're gonna have to find some other way to get this out of your system. But my face and my body are not that way. That's not gonna happen for you.
It's a no for me, dog.
But yeah, there's tons of action in this, tons of heart in this. The emotions just beautifully written. And it ends on kind of a cliffhanger-ish situation. It's a series, so you kind of, you know that you need to get to, there's gonna be more. But I love the pacing of this book, and I will say that out of the the romantasies that I've read lately, this was definitely this is definitely like up there for me. I feel like this author, she found the right balance between, plot and spice. Like, I love me a good romantasy. I literally rocked with a series for like 30 novels, since I was a teen. This author, she gets it from book 1 to book 2. I mean, there's tension, it's not just sex for the sake of sex, and there aren't that many spice scenes, but the way she builds them up, they have a purpose. They serve a purpose, okay? If you are a fan of romantasy, if you like dark academia, I highly recommend this series. This author is definitely one to watch out for. All right, so the next book that I read in, y'all, I was getting ready to say March, then I was getting ready to say May. This is what happens when you like reach your 40s, and when you reach your 40s as a woman, as a mom, that brain fog starts hitting, baby. My kids laugh at me all the time. I'm like stumbling over my words. I'm putting the wrong words in. I'm calling different names for people. Or I'm calling people different names. The animals. Running down their list. Like, baby. All right, so the next book that I read in July, Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings. Y'all, I'm sorry. I know that this author is controversial, but I can't quit this series. Baby, I'm in. I'm locked in, I'm invested. The girl can write. I mean, I'm sorry. The girl can write. This book was phenomenal. Did I give Magnolia 5 stars? I think I can't remember if I gave Magnolia 5 stars or not. I rated this one 4. I'll talk to you as if you don't know anything about the series, right? So this Daisy Hates is a part of the Magnolia Parks universe. So book 1 is titled Magnolia Parks, and it follows our main female character, Magnolia Parks. But Daisy is also featured in that book, but we don't get her perspective necessarily. So this is book 2 of that series, but this is book 1 from Daisy's perspective. So throughout this Magnolia Parks series, this Magnolia Parks universe, we have Daisy and then we have Magnolia Parks. So we have Magnolia Parks, her perspective in books, and then we have Daisy's perspective in books. So this book follows the same timeline, the timeline that Magnolia Parks happened, but this is what happened. This is what was going on in Daisy's life when ish was popping for Magnolia Parks. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So Daisy is an orphan, and she comes from like this crime family. You know, they're like basically your modern day, you know, mafia family, or you know, a modern day crime family. Her parents were murdered when she was a child, and she's basically been raised by her older brother. And they have their own little, you know, their own found family. And she calls them her lost boys. So she's got her brother, and then she's got, you know, her brother's friends and his, you know, his henchmen, his crew, his clique. We're getting Daisy's life, you know, the life of a member of a crime family. We get her we literally get her POV, we get her brother Julian's POV, and then we get our guy Christian's POV. And Christian is Daisy's love interest. Christian and Daisy's relationship is, I mean, it's sad. It just is. It's like they're brought together through their trauma bonds. They have both had something traumatic happen to them in their childhood, so they get each other. They understand each other in that sense, you know, that sense of loss that Magnolia and BJ, you know, book 1, that they have no idea about, you know. But these two, Christian and Daisy, have had they've had a hard life, and both of their families are, you know, of the criminal element. You know, people who aren't a fan of the miscommunication trope, you may be irritated some with this series, with Daisy's books and with Magnolia's, because there is a little bit of miscommunication in it. And I'm generally not a fan of miscommunication, but in this case, it's beautifully written. Christian and Daisy, they kind of like this casual thing going, right? But deep down inside, they both kind of really care for each other, but at the same time, they are both kind of each other's second choice. Christian is in love with his best friend's girl, and then Daisy has this, you know, she had her heart broken by basically her childhood sweetheart, you know, this guy who he literally saved her life, and he's her BJ. Like, if you read Magnolia Parks, you understand what that means. But he was basically her soulmate. They somehow kind of always find their way back to each other. Yeah, this one's kind of gritty. This one is, you know, equal parts romance as it is like crime thriller. I mean, there's action in this. It's dark. It's gritty. But the wide range of emotions and that these characters are going through and expressing. It's just so, it just hits you in the chest. Like I was like, man, like Christian, my heart just really broke for him. Like my heart just, it's so heartbreaking. Because this young man is, you know, had a rough go with it, had a hard life, and he just wants to be loved, just wants love, but also doesn't necessarily feel like he's worthy of it. So he, I don't know, they both kind of self-sabotage in this, you know. Nobody wants to be the one to say uncle. Nobody wants to be the one to give in, right? A tangled mess, okay? A tangled, beautiful, mangled mess, and I loved it. The next book that I read in July was Just Our Luck by Denise Williams. Y'all know I will die on the hill. This lady, this author writes some of the best banter and romance. Just hands down, she gets it. It's funny, it's witty, it's cheeky. So our main characters in this are Sybil and Kieran. Kieran or Kieran? Kieran. Sybil and Kieran. Some of the tropes in this are grumpy sunshine and fake dating. So Sybil is, God love her. Sybil's like the black sheep of her family. Kieran comes home like a good son to help right the ship. Sybil and Kieran are night and day. He's your like type A personality, very stoic. And then Sybil's just this kind of life of the party, all over the place type situation. You know, very bubbly, very talkative. So their paths just happen to cross. You know, just their luck, right? They cross paths and a connection forms. They have a little one-night stand situation, or what they think is going to be a one-night stand situation, but it turns into more. One-night stand turns into a little bit more than that when a winning lottery ticket comes into play. Sybil, you know, makes this deal. Hey, you know, I'll sure, you know, hey, if you can help me convince my parents that, you know, I am a responsible adult and that you and I are in this committed relationship, you know, I'll help, you know, I'll help out with your, you know, your family business. I'll pay you. I'll help you guys get, you know, get out of the red. I thought this was a really cute read. I didn't necessarily feel like the chemistry so much between these two, or I didn't really see it. And I think it's just because of how opposite they were. I get opposites attract, but I didn't feel their chemistry the way I felt Jake and Naya's in How to Get Away with Flirting, or Britta and Wes's connection and The Fastest Way to Fall. That being said, I still enjoyed it. I still had a good time with it. I really enjoyed, I had this with her novel Technically Yours. I had the same kind of situation where I didn't really necessarily vibe with the couple together. Like I didn't really see the connection between them, but I love the banter between the main characters and their supporting cast and their friends and family. Like I love the way, you know, Kieran's sister, like I love the way they like playfully argued back and forth and the wit between them. I love the banter between Sybil and her friend group. So I enjoy that a lot. I probably I'm not gonna say more than the romance, but almost more than a romance, really. It was really cute. Overall, a very good read. If you've never read anything from Denise Williams, definitely recommend this. I highly recommend her novel, How to Get Away with Flirting. I rated that one 5 stars. So that's probably my favorite one so far. But this was still a really good read. The next book that I read, y'all, this was a wild one. Butterfly Garden by Hutchinson. So this is a thriller. This is like a crime slash psychological thriller. I think I rated this 4 stars. It was a decent read. It was like in an interview style, which I've never really read a thriller in that format. It took me a while to get into it, or at least get over that little affliction, that little hiccup. This novel, it's more about the story, not the characters. You know, you see that, and that's not uncommon in a thriller. So our premise here, we have this perpetrator, a killer. Okay, he's a killer. He's a serial killer, or a serial killer collector, if you will. And they call him the gardener. And he collects butterflies. So he kidnaps these women, these young women. He kidnaps them under the guise that he's giving them a better life, or at least that's what he tells one of his sons when he reveals to his son what he's doing. So he kidnaps these women and he has this garden, and they are his butterflies in his butterfly garden. This was like a Lifetime movie because it's so bizarre. But when we start the novel, it's like after the women have been rescued. So everything that we're seeing and hearing is in hindsight. So one of the victims is being interviewed. And so basically she's walking them through basically what life was like living or being held captive by the gardener. This man he was really delusional. Like, he really felt like he was providing them with a decent life, with a good life. You know, these were his precious butterflies. He renamed them, gave them names, and it was just, it's almost like you can't say a whole lot about it. It's so bizarre. You don't want to say too much because I need you to experience this. Just know that this book is wild. One of the things that stuck with me is when the detectives are interviewing one of the women, one of the survivors. They're having a hard time determining whether she was a part of it or whether she's really a victim, because her whole mannerism, her whole affect is, for them, they're like, she's not, doesn't appear to be in shock. You know, she's not crying. She's not, withdrawn. She's telling jokes. She's kind of being snarky. You know, what victim does this? But there's this moment when they're talking to her and they're telling her, well, hey, all the girls at the hospital that have been identified, their families are there and their families want to see them. But these girls don't want to talk to anybody but you. They're asking for you. They're not responding well to things, or, whatever. So she tells them, she's like, this is too much for them. This isn't real for them yet. This is too much reality for them. You got to think about where we've come from. Some of us have been held captive for years. Our minds aren't ready to handle the reality of the outside world. This isn't real for us just yet. We just came out of lockup after years of being, kind of fine somewhere. That's too much, baby. We're not ready to see our families. So these girls have been through a lot. They've been through things. They've seen things. They've done things. And it just really stuck with me. People expect victims to act a certain way, and they think that, oh, once you're rescued, that, oh, wow, everything's better for you, right? Aren't you so glad to be out of there? And yes, their bodies are physically out of there, but their minds are still there, So, I don't know, just when she kind of said that, and I'm paraphrasing it, but yeah, that just kind of really stuck out to me. I think when we read things like that, we're like, oh my gosh, like this is Lifetime movie vibes. Like this stuff could never happen. Like who's kidnapping women and keeping them, you know, who's got like a secret garden with, you know, with pull down walls and fortresses and, you know, a wife and you know, a family that have no idea what he's doing. And, you know, how is he able to maintain this charade? Like, how is he able to maintain this? But if we can wrap our minds around the fact that human trafficking is real and people do that for a profit, this shouldn't be that far-fetched of an idea to wrap our minds around, that somebody could do this just because they want to and they can. So, yeah, just a really wild and bizarre, like, very interesting concept. Very, very interesting. The last book that I read in July, Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. So this is a YA thriller. Y'all, I had to put this down several times. And not because I was like sobbing or anything like that. There were some moments that I did cry, don't get me wrong. But I was just having such a visceral reaction to the villain in this, you know, the perpetrator. We have our main character, Enchanted. She's a 17-year-old swimmer and she loves to sing. Has a dream of, you know, one day being a singer. So Enchanted goes to an audition, meets this famous singer, music mogul while she's there. And she's just, you know, as any young aspiring singer would be, she is just enamored, you know, at the sight of this, you know, hey, this is Corey Fields, this is, you know, the world-renowned singer, everybody knows him, and here he is taking an interest in me. So there the grooming begins, you know, with just a little bit of extra attention, and then come the secret little text and telling her just how talented she is. So making her feel special and unique, singling her out. He ingratiates himself into her life, you know, basically telling her and her family that, you know, he wants to, you know, mentor her. He wants to take her on tour. He sees her potential. He wants to help her, you know, start her career. He's saying all the things that she wants to hear. And of course, her parents are, you know, hesitant. Like, this is, you know, this is a teenage child. She's got school and you want to pull her out of school to go on tour with you. So not only has he found a way to like groom her and tell her all the things that she wants to hear, well, he sees that, you know, their family is kind of struggling financially. So he finds a way to exploit that. Hey, I'll help pay for, you know, your other daughter to go to school, you know, if you let this one come on tour with me, you know, if you let me take her under my wing. Oh, don't worry about anything, you know, we've got my assistant here. You don't have to worry about her being alone with me. It's like a fairy tale for her in the beginning, you know, things seem great. And then they're not. And then she starts to see the, you know, the true dark side of him, his true intentions for her. He just found a way to find the thing that she wanted in her life and to find the things that were missing in her life. And he found a way to be that for her and to exploit that. Definitely trigger warnings for this. Rape, physical assault, substance abuse. But there's two perpetrators in this story. Corey for sure. And then society. You know, the way that society and the media continued to to protect this man, the way that they failed to hold him accountable for his actions, and the way that they continually, you know, questioned her and re-victimized her and other women who were trying to come forward. And you see that in society and in our world today. These powerful men, and the way that we as society put them up on a pedestal, and they are able to get away with any and everything because of who they are, because of, you know, the money that they have, because of, you know, the entertainment value that they have, the power that they have. Society fails to hold them accountable. They just kind of look over that. And then they blame the victims. Like, oh, they were just after the money, you know. And you see that with Enchanted, you know, the victim blaming, you know. But at the end of the day, just like Tiffany D. Jackson says in her author note, you know, this happens in our world, and at the end of the day, you know, these are grown-ass men. You know, whether these teenage girls are, you know, lusting after these men or not, or crushing on these guys or not, these are grown men. They know better. Whether you say these girls know better or not, these men know better. But yeah, just a very good read, a hard read. But I think it's really important, especially if you have daughters, little sisters, cousins, your aunties, your mamas, you know, anybody can be a victim, right? I think it's important, and I think it's a good way, it's a good conversation starter. You know, like, come to me, no matter what. You know, come to me no matter what. There is nothing you could say to me, nothing you could tell me that will make me love you any less. Because he found a way, you know, these perpetrators and Corey found a way to isolate her from her family. Good read, excellent read, highly recommend it. Can't wait to read more from her. All right, so that is everything that I read for the month of July. What did you guys read this month? Any 5-star reads for you all? Let me know down in the comments. All right, well, that's all that I have for you all today. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. And until the next one, friends, bye. We need some like shots. Shots, everybody. The sun, el sol. Okay, can we bounce that on her? Bounce on the shoe. Bounce on it. No. I don't want to shake too much. Does that still got something on my shirt? Bounce on the shit. Bounce on the shit down. Bounce on. Shouldn't have did that.